Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to some of you. We're so excited to be with you. I'm Eli Broverman, one of the founding partners at Treasury. At Treasury, as some of you probably already know, we back great fintech founders. We're fintech founders ourselves, and we really look to partner with and invest in and help other founders, both in the U.S. where we're based and around the world, grow the next generation of great fintech companies. And I'm so happy to have with us today Ola Oyetayo from Verto, one of our favorite entrepreneurs in the Treasury portfolio. Ola, how are you? Thank you for being with us. Please tell us a little bit about Verto.
Thanks for having me, Eli, and I'm doing very well, thank you. So Verto is a cross-border payments platform for businesses. We've developed a tech platform that helps businesses in emerging markets such as Africa move money internationally in a very seamless and instant fashion. In places such as Nigeria, Kenya or South Africa, we're the only platform that has been developed to help a business move money outside of the traditional financial or banking institutions.
Great, and give us a sense of you've scaled the company pretty quickly. Just give us a sense today of the number of customers you're serving, the volume of transactions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've currently got about 2,000 businesses that we're servicing on the Verto platform, mostly small and medium scale enterprises. On a monthly basis across products, we do about $100 million in transaction volume, and that's been growing, exponentially. We've grown that about, 9 times in the last 12 to 14 months.
Phenomenal progress. And you're the only one doing this in your region. Tell us a little bit more about who are your customers? What are the problems that you're solving for them?
Yeah, great question. It's really a big problem that we're solving for our customers. So our customer is typically a small and medium scale enterprise, does business internationally, has a supply chain that is outside of its local country. So you could be a business in, Lagos, Nigeria, looking to buy goods from a supplier in China. And we essentially allow you to convert your local currency to, maybe US dollars or yuan, and deliver those funds to your supplier outside of your local country. So we've got, many instances of businesses that, essentially without Verto would not be able to extremely, deal with convertibility of currencies. In Africa, most of the currencies that these businesses have as local currencies are very exotic or considered exotic and very liquid. So there's no real convertibility. There's very low supply of foreign currencies such as the US dollars. And we've just created a one-stop shop that allows them to, convert their local ones for foreign currency and then make that payment as well, all using sort of our best-in-class technology to deliver that. And most importantly, we also do that in a very fast, transparent, and secure manner. So in a sense, you can actually, convert your local currency to a foreign one and make it, get to the beneficiary within 24 hours, much faster than, traditional banking rails.
And your customers, are many of them natively online businesses? Are they more offline and legacy types of customers, or is there a healthy blend?
Yeah, I think very healthy blend. We've actually benefited from having a lot of the customers that previously are not digital natives, so much more older sort of legacy, enterprises, start using our platform after COVID. So obviously COVID, was this big tailwind that accelerated the shift to digital payment methods. And you basically had a lot of businesses that, maybe for trust reasons or just the fact that they weren't very comfortable with technology, didn't really have, an understanding of, being able to use a platform such as ours. And we've pretty much made, converted them. And, ever since they've started using us, they've been, very pleased with the service that we offer. So I would say it's a mix of, we've got a lot of, tech companies using us as well. So if you think about Africa as a continent, I think in the last, pretty much year to date, we've had our largest, venture capital infusion, in history. So probably about a 1.2 or 1.3 billion dollars has been invested by, international venture capital into the African ecosystem. And these are businesses that are, essentially, buying AWS credits, for example, right? So they've got to run, using AWS, and they need to make payments to Amazon, and they use a tool such as Verto to do that. So on this spectrum, these are very sort of digital native type businesses because they're tech businesses themselves. And then on the other side, you then have very sort of traditional, trade related, you'd say import and export type businesses that previously would have had to go through the traditional banking system to make a payment to a supplier in a place like China. And they've been introduced to Verto and have been using the platform.
Talk just a little bit more about tech more broadly in Africa. What it's changing very quickly now, and that creates a lot of opportunity for Verto with potential clients. Not everything, as we just talked about, but I think it's just interesting for me and for the audience to hear a little bit more from your perspective on what's happening in the African tech ecosystem.
Sure. So what's happening right now is phenomenal and it's unprecedented, right? So Africa fundamentally has a very youthful population. So the median age is about 19, and if you compare that to the median age in Europe, which is 43, it obviously tells you how youthful the population is. In about 80 years' time as well. So in the year 2100, about 40% of the world's population would be living in Africa, and that's because the population growth rate is about 2.7% on an annual basis. So literally this is a continent that is growing and is growing very fast and it's booming, but it's also been fundamentally constrained by lack of infrastructure. So technology is really, really accelerating, a lot of the growth right now on the continent because there's a lot of leapfrogging. It's resource constrained. There's no lot of infrastructure, and there's a lot of great entrepreneurs using technology to make things work, much more better and faster for the region. So that's why we're seeing a lot of growth, on the continent. Anything from logistics to healthcare to financial services is really just taking off in terms of disruption from technology. So if you're going to be betting on the continent, you want to be betting on a place like Africa because it's literally, like it's untapped greenfield opportunity right now, and there's a lot happening.
Yeah, and just that's great. Thank you. And just coming back to your customers and a little bit of a dichotomy in some of your customers, and you have to think differently about acquisition, visibility, and maybe even onboarding. So how do you deal with a business to business customer set that are really different in terms of how adaptable they are to technology?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, actually. I think one of the unique differentiators of Verto is our big focus on compliance and regulation. For a lot of the businesses on the continent, the reason they're currently disconnected to a large extent from the global financial sort of system is because mostly there's legacy sort of risk related type issues, right? So fundamentally, global financial institutions just think businesses in a place like Africa are, so-called high risk. So what we're doing to basically solve for that is to ensure that we, have best in class regulatory sort of onboarding. So if a business, I mean, we could potentially be servicing 10 times the businesses we're serving now, but we've had to go through a very thorough, what they call KYC, so know your customer, and onboarding process. And what we've also done here, which is kind of different, is first using technology, and then also localizing as well. So in a case like in a country such as Nigeria, if we're onboarding the business in a place like Nigeria, we would actually we're connected to the central company database, for example. So if a business says, hey, here's my company registration credentials, not to go into any sort of too technical details, but if a business does that to us whilst they're trying to be onboarded, we actually are linked by technology to the central database, and we can call those details just to ensure that it's actually says it is what it is, and also pull the details off its owners and directors. And by being able to go through this sort of very thorough check, we're ensuring that we basically know the businesses that we're dealing with, and then also the other sort of partners that we have that we're using basically to ensure that money moves across borders seamlessly, is also very, they're protected by the fact that we've gone through this thorough check. So for us, compliance and regulation is a super key differentiator, and it's something that we spend a lot of time and technology making sure that we get right, and that's really helped us so far as well.
Yep, it's so often the right way to build a thoughtful fintech business, and how you can create a real long-term moat for yourselves. Let's talk about your technology a little bit, specifically, around your ability to handle multi-currency accounts. It's a really important part of your technology. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. So if you think about our typical customer, the business is just not trying to receive money from people or customers in its country. It's fundamentally either receiving money from other businesses or people internationally, or it's actually making payments internationally as well. And obviously, it's constrained by the fact that it typically just has one currency, which is its local currency that it can use to do that. So what we've offered is something called multi-currency accounts. And what that means is, with our platform, a business actually is able to have access to the 39 currencies that we have available, and not just have access to those currencies in order to convert into them. It can also receive in those currencies as well. So, a very good use case is, maybe you're a content creator or business and you've got customers across the world, and, folks need to pay you. So basically, using our multi-currency accounts, you can actually, get someone a US dollar details for them to make a payment to you in US dollars, because that's their convenient means of making payments, or because they're located in New York like yourself, or they can make a payment to you in euros if they're somewhere in Germany. And that basically opens up that business to really being able to do business across borders without any sort of hindrance. And that's really the powerful sort of aspect of what we're offering. So the business in Johannesburg or Nairobi or Lagos is really placed on the same even keel as a business in New York or Hamburg in Germany, because it just has this functionality using technology to basically transact internationally. And that's the power of the multi-currency accounts that we offer.
And this is important, if as I always think about it, because a lot of your clients, I mean, they're repeat transactions with their counterparties. If you're importing something from China, you're probably doing that not just once, but that's every day. If you're a natively digital business, you've got to pay Amazon Cloud every single month, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So maybe that brings me a little bit to, I'd love for you to share with the audience the origins of Verto, because you and your partner Anthony really sort of started as a side hustle, in part. Tell us a little bit about how the business started. What were your past lives before that? And I think that's also helpful for understanding what the options were before Verto was built.
Now, that's a very good question, and thanks for asking that. So, in my previous life, I was actually a banker. So I spent, probably about a decade working for various large sort of financial institutions. So, I actually used to wear a suit and tie. And when I tell people that now, they're always, laughing at me. But yeah, I was a banker for a very long period. But I'd always been entrepreneurial. So I moved to the UK about 16 years ago. So I live in London in the UK. But originally from Nigeria. At some stage, this was about, I guess, 5 years ago. A lot of my friends with businesses back in Nigeria started reaching out to me because they had this problem of having the local currency, but not being able to convert it into dollars, particularly to pay their suppliers abroad. And I just started thinking, this has to be, something that someone else is solving or thinking about. But it turns out that outside of the traditional banking system, there was just no alternative to this. And living in London, we did, this is something that's been solved for by a few sort of fintech competitors of Vertos, and I just thought there must be a reason why this isn't possible. So I deep dived into it, realized that, for various reasons, some of which I've touched on, regulatory, people thinking these are high risk regions. No one has actually just really thought about solving for this. And then Tony, my co-founder, we, regularly catch up monthly to play poker. I started talking to them about the fact that, hey, there's this bunch of friends I have that are really struggling to pay their suppliers abroad. And I've been, helping some of them, literally, like you mentioned, like a side hustle. So I started a remittance app to help people in the UK send money back to Nigeria. Then I would aggregate the pounds from those guys and then convert it to dollars and help the businesses in Nigeria send the dollars out to places like China and the US. And I was just literally doing it on an instant messaging tool, and the business really just took off, right? And Tony obviously, I think he was much more foresight in terms of how big the business could be, and he just said, hey, we can literally put this on technology and create a large tech platform to help solve for this, and really make this a scalable business. And that's really how we started off. So we spent the first few months trying to figure out how exactly to get the initial what they call rails going, which is connections with payment partners and banks, and also regulatory sort of license. So that was fun. We did that for about 8-9 months. We launched an initial version of the platform. So we tried to get a lot of the guys that I was transacting with offline, to start using the platform. So we learned a lot about getting early adopters and getting people to make a switch once they're used to a certain method. And then we just continued and iterated from there. We got a lot of traction, got into Y Combinator, which is obviously the famed Silicon Valley accelerator. Came out of that, raised the seed funding round, and then, sort of went to market with a better version of the product. And ever since then, we've just been building. And every time we scratch this, the surface is just so much more to unearth, because the problem is super significant and large as well. So it's been exciting, and I don't miss my previous life, anyway, it's anymore.
Right. Geographically, I'm just curious. Is it strategically important to be in London, to have the company headquartered there, or could this business be built just as well in any number of other locations?
Very, very good question. I get asked this a lot. For us, it is strategically important to be in located in the financial sort of capital. So I would argue that London is the fintech capital of the world. And if we were into London, maybe we'd be in New York or Singapore or something. But also, most importantly, it is the foreign exchange capital of the world. About 45% of the world's FX is done in London. So it gives us access to, what they call, counterparties. So other, financial institutions and banks and payment partners that we can basically deal with. And they would much rather, have a business in a, very regulated market such as London, than maybe in some other markets. So we're licensed and regulated in the UK by the Financial Conduct Authority here. as an electronic money institution. So basically, a pseudo digital bank, and that gives a lot of the counterparties and financial institutions that we deal with the comfort that we could be a trusted partner, and then being able to then use this sort of regulatory license and headquarters in the UK to then deal with partners in places such as Asia and Africa and the US is for us a very strategic sort of advantageous tool.
Yep. Let's talk about cryptocurrencies. What are your plans? Do you have plans to leverage cryptocurrencies as you grow?
So very good question. I personally, obviously considering the audience, I have a love-hate relationship with crypto because from a when I think about the way we deal with cross-border payments, I think from a transactional perspective, there's not much utility right now. Obviously from a I guess store of value and speculative perspective that there's quite a lot going on in that space. We think of more about stable coins and what it offers to us as a business, and also most importantly central bank digital currencies. If you think about the space that we're in, if a local currency can easily be converted into a stable coin, which is obviously probably a much more liquid and stable version of that currency, and can be breached into fiat, then that makes a lot more sense. And some of the markets that we're in, the structural issue of illiquidity of that currency can be solved by stable coins, and we see a lot of that in places such as Nigeria. In fact, the Nigerian government actually just recently launched their own central bank digital currency called the e-naira. We're looking very closely at that, and we should be adopting that hopefully sometime soon into our payment chain, because we think it's a very great sort of innovative way to offer a digital version of the currency. So folks such as ourselves that are into cross-border payments, can potentially utilize that. So obviously we like the distributed ledger, blockchain type based utility solving for things in our space. We also like the potential of using that from a sort of regulatory smart contract perspective. But stable coins for us is certainly the way to go at some point in the future.
Great. Appreciate your perspective there. Let's hear a little bit about what else you think is trending in fintech and payments more broadly.
Yeah, sure. So apart from central bank digital currencies that I mentioned, which is a great sort of way for the central banks to actually get ahead of the game, because no one wants to lose their sovereignty, right? The ability to print and issue money is super important for them. I also see trends such as buy now pay later. When we think about credit and access to credit in I always use Africa as an example. In a continent such as Africa, the ability for alternative lenders to offer tools such as buy now pay later, I think it's a powerful sort of tool. And that's really taken off recently. So from a fintech perspective, we think the credit trend offered by buy now pay later is super important. Also, essentially, what we're also noticing as well is we're seeing a lot of what we call so part of what we do as a cross-border payments institution at the moment is mostly through bank transfers, but then there's the virtual card component of this, where a company such as Verto can actually issue either a payment link or a virtual card to its customers, and they can actually use that to buy physical goods online, right? So rather than doing cross-border using banking accounts or rails, there's a potential to use cards to do that as well. And that's really, really something that we think is a strong trend. Creating sort of instantaneous virtual cards or payment links where folks can basically just either receive or send money digitally on the internet. And then it's not a physical, the numbers change, or every time you need to make a payment, a new number gets generated. It's also great from, a security and safety perspective as well. So for me, those are the sort of trends I'm seeing in the fintech space now that I think are super interesting.
Let me just follow up there on areas for buy now, pay later, and for really kind of merchant cash advanced life services. Is there a roadmap or a game plan for Verto to start offering or even partnering for those services for your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the vision for Verto for us is outside of just helping a business move money internationally, we want to also help a business literally use technology to run that business, right? So most of the aspects that are financial related, and almost be an alternative to them having a bank, because there's a lot of things that we think we can do a lot more better than a traditional bank could, using technology. And there's what you just mentioned about lending and credit aspects of that. There's helping get a loans and savings marketplace, pretty much helping with payments as well, helping with convertibility and things like payroll, expense management. There's quite a few things that we have in our roadmap that we think we can definitely do a lot better job of offering our business customers as opposed to traditional financial institutions.
Some of that stuff, obviously, years away. Just a few minutes left. Tell us, what's your focus for the next 12 months as we're getting close to turning the calendar year. So what is the company, what's your North Star for the company over the next 12 months? What is the team working on? And then let's talk again for just a 30 seconds on the 5-year big picture and what you think the company looks like years down the road.
Sure. So our immediate sort of priorities right now is geographical expansion. So extending our reach in countries, most importantly on the continents that we're looking to launch in, and then we're also really working on our API. So we've got a lot of use cases of other businesses that are more digital natives and maybe do a lot more recurring transactions that want to be exposed to our technology. So we're going to do that by offering them the ability to integrate to us via an API. So that's pretty much sort of near term. The longer term vision is we want to be the go-to platform for businesses that trade internationally, and that would be a one-stop shop for all their financial needs as a business. And that's sort of like what we're working towards as well.
Great. Super stuff. Really enjoyed the conversation. Congrats on all the progress, and thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, thanks, Eli, and thanks for having you as an investor, and really benefited a lot from your wealth of knowledge, and hope to continue having good times together.
Of course. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being with us.